Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about some theoretical Hearthstone cards based around a brand new hero class, the Pokémon Trainer. Pokemon Trainer has a lot of secrets, has a lot of spells, and has a lot of minions particularly. And we're not going to talk about his hero power yet, because it only interacts with his minions, and since we're starting off with the secrets and the spells, we're not going to bother with the hero power yet. We're just going to talk about the spells and secrets. So, first we're going to start off with the secrets. First secret is the weakness policy. It's a secret. It says when a friendly minion survives damage, it gains +3/+3. Now that card is stronger than Avenge, which is its easiest comparable, as it gives a friendly minion a large buff for 1 mana when a certain thing happens. It gets 3/3 instead of 3/2, because a friendly minion surviving damage is less likely than having 2 minions on the board and one of them dies. In the early game particularly, because if you play a weak health minion, likely that minion is going to get killed in one hit by another minion. There is the chance that, a mage pings it, and then it gets 3/3, and that's great. And that's the strongest time for a weakness policy to come out. But just like an Avenge, the strongest time is probably in the beginning, when minions are kind of weak, and then that minion overpowers everything else. So the next card we're going to talk about is TM90 Substitute, which says whenever an enemy character attacks, that includes the enemy hero with a weapon, attacks your hero, summon a 0/3 Substitute doll as the new target. So that means if a Deathwing attacks your face, you get a 0/3. So this card effectively just saves you face damage. It can be played, late in the game when something is threatening you. It protects you. It's very simple. It also gives you a little bit of a body if it survives. If you play it in the early game, it actually gives you a little bit of a body. If a 1 mana attacks, or 2 mana, not a 1 mana. Well, I guess a 1 mana card attacks. Yeah, if a 1 mana card attacks you, it's probably going to end up letting the sub live, and the sub can actually be useful. You could play a Direwolf Alpha, and then it can attack and trade into something. It could save you some damage and trade, and generally it can actually be a little bit helpful to have a little bit of a weak body around. And a 1 mana 0/3 is a little bit worse than a 1 mana 1/3, which many classes have, but it comes with the added benefit of also possibly saving you a lot of face damage, sort of having a taunt that's guaranteed to work for your face. So the next secret we're going to talk about is the Aspire Berry. Aspire Berry, if you've never heard of it before, it's because it's useless in Pokemon. It unfreezes a Pokemon when it gets frozen, and that happens just often enough for this berry to almost never be used. In Hearthstone, it would probably not be used either, because realistically this isn't very useful. There's not very many opportunities where this could be useful. However, the theming fits so well that I thought it would go well in the set. It just says when a friendly character becomes frozen, you unfreeze it. So this can be used very simply as an anti-mage card, basically only anti-mage. If you play it against a mage, then you could protect a minion, right? So let's say you play a 2 mana card with more health than a Frostbolt can kill. They Frostbolt it and plan on pinging it the next turn. It gets unfrozen, it can still attack, and their plan was kind of ruined. Or maybe in the later game when you have a big minion and they have to Frostbolt it to stop it from hitting you, or hitting the mage, sorry. You play Aspire Berry, and then the minion gets unfrozen and it hits them in the face anyway, and they don't get protected. So that's why Aspire Berry is really strong. And that's the only case it's really strong, so you could tech it in. It's kind of a tech card against mages. And that's kind of interesting. Next, we've got the Lumberry. Lumberries is whenever a friendly minion is targeted by a spell redirected to your hero, if possible. Now the if possible is there so that you don't get polymorphed, so you don't get a Blessing of Kings on your hero. That stuff can't happen. But if a fireball is going towards a minion, you take the fireball for them, you take the bullet. And that means that this card is actually really good, because you could really compare it to a lot of different cards. You can kind of compare it to a counterspell or a spellbender, but 2 mana cheaper, and that's really good. Because it effectively, if you're playing this, you clearly are playing control, and you want them to not... You're playing against a control deck, hopefully. And it says whenever you're minion, so if you're fighting an aggro deck, they're going to hit your face anyway. So this doesn't really hurt you against aggro, unless they do target a minion out of desperation and they end up hitting your face and that helps them, but I doubt it would. If they're hitting a minion out of desperation, they're hitting it out of desperation. They don't want to hit your face anymore. So this card's really strong. You play a minion on 4 mana like a Chillwind Yeti, it gets fireballed, but then it doesn't. Your minion gets saved, the fireball is basically neutered, but it still deals damage, just not to the target they wanted it to, so that's why it's comparable to a counterspell. Because the spell is still nullified in some way, but it's not nullified exactly... It's not nullified as optimally as counterspell would. So Lumberry is really cool. Next, we've got the Focus Sash. The Focus Sash is a secret that says when a friendly minion is attacked and would die, give it Divine Shield. So this card protects a minion. When it would die, it gives a Divine Shield. Now in Pokemon, it prevents a minion from falling below 1 health when it's at full health, but that would be so bad, painfully so, especially because for 1 mana you can give a minion Divine Shield to any minion you want in Paladin. I figured that this would be a little bit better. Especially because this might actually be better than Hand of Protection, because this is kind of like a Hand of Protection when a minion actually needs it, rather than giving it a Hand of Protection to help trade on your own turn. This is kind of like your enemy has a Chillwind Deity, all your minions are good to protect and you don't know which one to protect. If you had a Hand of Protection, you just have to pick whichever one you think is the best. But with this, you could protect all three of them, because then when the Yeti tries to trade one of your early game minions in, it gets Divine Shielded, the Yeti takes damage, and your minion is safe. So Focus Sash is actually pretty strong. Next we have the Eject button. The Eject button is a 1-mana secret, as they all are. I don't know why I bothered to mention its mana cost. That says when a friendly minion survives damage, return to your hand. So basically, it is a Brewmaster, but it is a secret, and just returns minions to your hand. It's pretty solid. Yeah, I mean, it's just pretty solid. But we do have a card that's analogous to that one. The red card, it's red in multiple ways. It's a secret. When an enemy minion attacks, return it to your opponent's hand. So it's like a freezing trap, and also kind of like Eject button, except for your opponent. Eject button, however, can be a good thing, because it only triggers when your minion gets attacked. And survives, I think. Wait a minute, did I forget what my own card said? I'm trying to remember the technicalities of my own card. Yeah, it survives damage. I know what my card says. Totally do. Totally. So anyway, yeah, red card. It's just a freezing trap, but no mana cost increase when they get it back in their hand. So it's cheaper, it's easier to play in the early game, because 2 mana is a little bit harder to weave in. You play your 2-drop, you can't then on turn 3 play a 2-drop and a freezing trap. You have to play a 2-drop and a 1-drop. In this case, you can play your 2-drop and a red card, and it lets you sort of throw that secret in when otherwise you would maybe just waste a mana crystal. So red card and Eject button kind of thematically similar, and are both pretty interesting cards. Pretty useful. Later on, we might even see some more applications of them. And the final secret, the most interesting one, the Custop Berry. It's a secret when your hero's health falls below 5, your opponent's turn ends, and you lose at the end of your next turn, which would be the turn that your opponent's turn's end goes into yours. That's your next turn, so you lose at the end of it. So basically what this is saying is, last-ditch effort, can you kill him? And that's it. That's all you got. Can you kill him? If you can't kill him, you can't win. So if your health falls below 5, now if your health is at 6 and you get hit for 6 and you go to 0, you're still dead. You can't just magically kill them, then it would be a tie, and that would still not even make sense because you're already dead. So you have to get hit in a way that makes it below 5. So, I mean, it says below 5, it doesn't even say. So, I mean, you could be at 5 and get down to 4, 3, 2, or 1. A very small window. And then your opponent's turn instantly ends, and you have to kill them in 1 turn, basically. Now, this may seem strong, but really, when you think about it, it's so unlikely to actually happen, because in order for this to happen, you effectively have to have been in a situation where you were basically winning and you got killed by a top deck. Like, for example, a Hunter top decking Kill Command, and then also using his Hero Power Steady Shot. That would be a situation where the Custop Berry might win, because you might have all the board control in the world. You might have lethal next turn, but if they top deck that Kill Command, you lose. So that's where this would come in handy. Could come in handy in sort of a dicking over face decks, which is a good card. I think people would appreciate such a thing. Now we're going to move on to the spells. Spells are pretty cool, pretty awesome. Talk about first Thunderbolt, 4 mana, deal 7 damage to a minion, TM24. Very simple card. It's like Fireball, but it doesn't go to face, so it gets one extra damage. It's very simple, very simple, but it's a necessary removal for the Pokemon Trainer. It really, really is. And also, the Pokemon Trainer has a somewhat strong theme of not going in the face damage with spells, not getting huge burst damage with spells, but rather just controlling things and using minions to go face, except for some very rare instances. And one specific card that you'll see later. So TM26 Earthquake is a 5 mana, deal 4 damage to all minions, so it's a Flame Strike that you cast and your opponents cast, but it costs 2 less, so if you're way behind, you Earthquake everything. Just like in Pokemon, if you're way behind in doubles or triples, just Earthquake everything. Just get rid of everything, it doesn't even matter anymore. So you deal 4 damage to all minions, real simple. I mean, that's it. You deal 4 damage to all minions, it costs 5 mana, simple AoE board wipe, simple, easy, that's how we do it. Next we have Frost Breath. This is a simple early game spell. TM79 Frost Breath, 2 mana, deal 2 damage to a minion, freeze it and the enemy hero. Now this may not seem too impressive, it may seem like a weaker Frostbolt, but if this was actually in the game, this would be incredibly overpowered. In certain classes that already exist, with all their cards they already have, this would be incredibly overpowered. In the Pokemon Trainer, I don't think it is. It's a necessary tool that they actually really need. But I mean, dealing 2 damage to a minion is usually good enough in the early game on 2 mana to kill things like jugglers. But freezing it is good, because it stops it from moving if it doesn't die to the Frost Breath itself. And the enemy hero, that's where things get crazy, because that prevents warriors from using their weapons in the early game to stop you. That prevents Fiery Wind Axes from winning. That prevents basically just Fiery Wind Axes. That's what it stops. It stops True Silvers, and that's where things get crazy with this card. because freezing the enemy hero is pretty good. Sometimes you see people just frostbolting the face to just stop people from doing crazy Grim Patron turns with Deathbite and stuff like that, so it's really strong. Also deals 2 damage, and freezes a minion too. Really good! Next we have Life Orb. This is another really, really good card. Really strong. It's 1 mana, give a minion +4 attack, and the card text, so to speak, whenever you deal damage, lose 1 health. So essentially what it's saying is, you deal 4 damage, then you take 1 damage. So you play this on Leper Gnome, you hit face, deal 6 damage, then you take 1 damage, you die. However, this card starts getting really crazy when you realize, see, the strongest cards in Hearthstone are the cards with downsides that can be exploited in a way that they become upsides. And this card is one of those. It's better than Blessing of Might. It has 1 extra attack and Blessing of Might has 3. This has 4, but it has a downside, so it should deserve 4. But it gets crazy when you realize that downside, it loses 1 health, right? So you play this on an Amani Berserker, which is a 2/3 enraged +3 attack. The Berserker becomes a 6/3, hits something, and then it becomes enraged, and it gets 3 more attack. Then it's a 9/2. That's insane. If you're playing an aggro deck, this is a really strong card. And it's not strong in the traditional sense where you play a bunch of 1-drops with 2 attack and spam them at the face, because you can't play this on those. But you can play it on 2/3s or 3/2s and get huge face damage, and that's really powerful. It also is really good at trading up. If you play this on a Leper Gnome and you're not trading, or you are trading and you're not hitting face, you can trade into something like a bear, like a Druid of the Claw bear. That's crazy. It's really strong. Next we're moving on to another card, which can kind of synergize with Life Orb actually. Leftovers. It's a 2-mana card that says, give a minion at the start of your turn, restore this minion to full health. The exact same card text as Stone Skin Gargoyle, able to be put onto anything for the low cost of 2 mana crystals. This may seem a little bit underpowered, but when you really start thinking about it, if you could put Stone Skin Gargoyle's text on a Ysera, would you do it? Yeah, you would. Would you pay 2 mana to do it? I think I'd venture to say it might be a little bit worth it. Ysera is already hard to get rid of. Making it heal at the start of every turn after it hits something to trade or whatever, that's crazy. That's really strong. It lets it infinitely trade, generate more cards, and that's with the Ysera. I mean, there's tons of other cards that can be applied to really start controlling things in the beginning of the game. You know, you could put this on a strong minion in the beginning. You can put this on a Death Lord and trade, just kill everything, and then they have to silence the Death Lord probably. And if they silence the Death Lord, that's good for you, because now it doesn't have a downside. Now it doesn't give them a huge swing once it finally dies. So leftovers can be pretty strong. Next we have a card. It's very simple. It's Roost. 5 mana, restore 5 health and draw 2 cards. Very simple. TM19. Yeah, this card's a bit overcosted if you think about it, because there's the 1 mana restore 5 health card and Priest, Flash Heal, and then Arcane Intellect, 3 mana draw 2 cards for Mage. So if you combine those, that should be 4 mana. And since it's only 1 card, you kind of make it a little bit worse. But you'd think the way you'd make it worse is maybe restore 4 health, still be 4 mana. But in actuality, 5 mana, restore 5 health, draw 2 cards. And the reason this is kind of crappy is because the Pokemon Trainer, this is the only card draw they have that isn't generated cards. The only way they have to draw from their deck without using neutral cards that draw cards is this card. They have cards which generate cards, but they don't generate random cards, and they only generate cards that are predetermined, usually spells, and we'll see those later on. But this card lets you draw from your deck, and drawing from your deck is generally better, even if you're drawing a crazy good card. Like, drawing a card from Ysera is good because those cards are better than they should be, but drawing a random spell isn't good because all the spells in the game aren't necessarily good. And if you put a card in your deck, it's probably good, so you want to draw cards from your deck, and this is the only way you have to do it as the Pokemon Trainer. Meaning running out of fuel is very, very likely in many situations. So next, we've got False Swipe. False Swipe's a really cool card. It's 1 mana, and it says target minion gains immune until end of turn when it attacks. It cannot lower the health of an enemy below 1. Now what this means is, play this on any minion, including enemies, and the next time it attacks, or just, I think I actually misprinted this actually. I intended it to be whenever it attacks from now until the end of time, and I think the phrase whenever should have been stated instead of when. I'm actually not sure about the grammatical context of that, or the literacy of my own self. However, I will say that I intended it to be every time until the end of time. Target minion gains immune until the end of turn when it attacks. Yeah, I think I misphrased this. If I put whenever though, the card text wouldn't fit, I don't think. So maybe I did that intentionally and I forgot. I don't remember. Whatever. Point is, it gains immune until end of turn whenever it attacks. I made a mistake. Wow. Big surprise there, am I right? This joke's gone on for too long. It gains immune whenever it attacks, so it's invincible when it attacks, which is really, of course, insane. Being invincible when you attack is crazy good. Crazy good. But it can't kill anything anymore. It says enemy, so it can't kill the hero, can't kill any minions. It can only injure them down to 1 health. It can only injure them. And the enemy has to kill it on their turn, sacrificing something into it, or just trading favorably, really. It doesn't have to be trading poorly. It can be trading anything into it. So you can also play this on an enemy minion. For example, you're playing an aggro deck, you play a bunch of measly 1 health creatures, and you play a false swipe on their zombie Chow to respond or something like that, the Chow can no longer trade to kill stuff, and since control decks typically have less early game drops, if they don't draw some more early game, or you can kill the other early game they play, that card that they played early to try to stop you from being aggressive is useless now. And that's a really good application of false swipe. So we're going to move on to the next card. The next card is Focus Punch. Focus Punch is a really, really cool card that's incredibly wordy, but once you kind of process it, it's actually really simple. So it's TMO 1 Focus Punch is 3 mana. It says deal 10 damage to a target at the start of your next turn. So you pick anything to deal 10 damage to, and it deals the damage at the start of your next turn. If your hero takes damage before you deal the 10 damage, you don't deal the 10 damage, and this card gets put back in your hand. So you return it to your hand. So this card at first seems crazy. 3 mana deal 10 damage is insane. But then you realize just how easy it is to stop you from dealing it, because all they have to do is hit you in the face. 4 heroes in the game have the ability to deal damage to the face with their hero power. Mage can ping your face, that's even behind taunts. Hunter always hits your face. And Druid and Rogue can hit your face if you don't have a taunt. So against 2 out of the 9 classes, this is basically useless. And against 4 out of the 9 classes, this is probably useless. However, against the other classes, it can be very strong. But even then, you're only dealing 10 damage, and 10 damage on 3 mana is probably only going towards the face. However, if you are playing this, it might be really good in an aggro deck, because in an aggro deck, making your opponents have to pay 2 mana to stop the 10 damage, since they might not have any minions on the board yet, means that it's very likely they're going to use 2 mana and lose more tempo, and therefore you're going to be able to keep on being aggressive. However, you're losing more tempo because you're paying 3 mana to make them spend 2, meaning in the end, if you keep on spamming this, because it gets put back in your hand so you can keep spamming it, you're going to lose more tempo in the end, but since you're an aggressive deck, you might not need as much of it to stay in the game. So Focus Punch is really interesting, cool designed card. Pat myself on the back. Next up, we're talking about Swagger, TM87. It's a 1 mana, give a minion +2 attack, and 50% chance to attack the wrong target. Now this card it only gives +2 attack. You might think that, oh, it should give 4 like Life Orb, because it has a downside. However, if you had two 1 mana spells which gave minions +4 attack in any class, I think you would see an aggro deck dominate the lists for that reason, so we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to give +2 attack and 50% chance to attack the wrong target, which means this is more of a card that you play in a mid-range deck, because you play this in a deck where you want to trade, where you don't mind what you hit. Mid-range would probably be the most optimal place. You put it on something like a Yeti, for example. It's a 6/5, and if it attacks the wrong thing, you're not really too upset. Because if you hit the face, okay, that's like a 1/6 of their health. If it hits a Sludge Belcher, that's great, it killed the Sludge Belcher. If you hit, a Shredder, that's great, it killed the Shredder. So you don't really mind what it attacks, as long as it kills something, and the extra damage can help you kill it better. Maybe you'll even hit something behind a taunt that you don't want to live anymore. It can be useful. Next we're going to talk about Thief, TM46. It's 2 mana, take control of a random enemy secret. It's a Kazan Mystic, but instead it's a spell, which might matter if you have spell synergy. And also, it's 2 less mana, which is better than 4 mana, because on 2 mana, you can steal basically every secret, If your opponent plays a secret on turn 1, you can coin this out to steal it if you want. Or if a hunter plays a secret on turn 2, you could steal it right away. If a mage plays it on turn 3, you could steal it right away. You can always steal a secret if you have this in your hand and there's a secret. So it's just a bit better at 2 mana than at 4 mana, like the Kazan Mystic is. So it's pretty good. You could use it very effectively against secret decks. Next, we're looking at Skill Swap. Skill Swap is a 3 mana card. It's really cool. It's TM48. It says choose an enemy minion and swap its card text with a random friendly minion. So what this is saying is, you take a random friendly minion, and whenever it says on its card, including enchantments, like if you once chose a card, which you got in your Pokemon Trainer deck for some reason, or let's say you Life Orbed it. Let's say you Life Orbed your Chillwind Yeti with no other card text, so the Life Orb will get replaced with whatever you swap it with, if that's the only minion you have. If it's picking that one, but if you have a Chillwind Yeti and then a minion with other card text, like a Life Orb on it, let's say, so you have 2 Chillwind Yetis. Let's make our example obvious. 2 Chillwind Yetis, one has a Life Orb on it, the other one has nothing on it. You want to steal the Death Rattle of Sylvanas. It's either going to swap it with the blank text of a Chillwind Yeti, meaning Sylvanas is just a 5/5, and you get a Chillwind Yeti with Sylvanas' Death Rattle. Or it's going to swap it with the Life Orb. At random. You get to pick what you steal, but you don't get to pick what gets taken from you. And that's what makes this card pretty powerful. And also pretty kind of weird, because a lot of the Pokemon Trainers cards have very strong effects that happen a lot of times. Once you see the minions, you'll see that more. But you could theoretically play this in like a Battle Cry deck, where you play a bunch of Battle Cries that you don't care if you get stolen, but you can steal their super strong effects and throw to them Battle Cry deal 1 damage that they can't use unless they're running a Panda combo deck. I don't know. That'd be pretty weird. So TM48 Skill Swap, pretty darn good. And the final card we have to talk about, because it's going to segue into the minions, because we're at the minions now, is a spell that says 3 mana, Mega Evolve a Minion. It's very simple. We're going to see some minions that can Mega Evolve, and if you want to Mega Evolve them, you're going to need to use this card to do it. And before we get into the minions, I've got another card which allows you to Mega Evolve minions. It is the Mega Ring. It's a 5 mana 0/3 weapon. It says whenever you summon a Pokemon that can Mega Evolve it, and this loses 1 durability. So it's very simple. This is a huge tempo loss for the possibility of ridiculous tempo gain, as you're going to see. Ridiculous tempo gain if this is equipped, but ridiculous loss if you play this on turn 5. Your opponent's going to gain a lot of tempo if you sit here and just play a Mega Ring. So, let's move to the minions. The first one is Charmander, a favorite of everyone, it seems. It's a 1-mana 1/2 battle cry, deal 1 damage to a random character, and as you can see at the bottom it says ready to evolve. We haven't talked about the hero power yet. The hero power of the Pokemon Trainer simply says evolve a minion. So any minions with a little ready to evolve at the bottom, use your hero power on. Now Charmander is the only Pokemon in his line that you can actually put into your deck. You play Charmander on turn 1, you evolve it into Charmeleon, who's right here. It's a 3/2 with Inspire, deal 2 damage to a random enemy minion. You can't put Charmeleon into your deck. You can't put in this 3-mana 3/2 with this Inspire effect into your deck. You put in Charmander and evolve it with your hero power on turn 2 to get this 3/2 on turn 2. Also, just quickly, if you have Justicar Trueheart in your Pokemon deck, and you play it, you get a new hero power, as with all the others, that replaces your starting one, and it is Vitamins. It evolves the Pokemon, and then once it is evolved, so if you play it on Charmander, if you play Vitamins after playing Justicar, you know, that whole shebang, you evolve it, but if instead you have Vitamins from playing Justicar, you use Vitamins on it, it evolves it, and then gives it 2 health, so it would be a Charmeleon that's a 3/4. It also, by the way, that would not work on Megas. If you Mega Evolve something, it is however it was. It's however it is. You don't get the vitamin effect on it. So, now that we get that out of the way, you evolve Charmander into Charmeleon. That's great. You can't put Charmeleon in your deck, so the fact that it costs 3 mana doesn't usually matter, but it does have an impact, and I did put it there for a reason. If this gets sapped into your hand, it's more expensive than a normal card. That's bad. And the Pokemon Trainer is a huge It's a huge tempo junkie. If the Pokemon Trainer loses tempo, he is out of it. He needs the tempo to keep it in the game. He needs to abuse tempo gains because he has tons of tempo swings, but if he gets out-tempoed in some way by another tempo deck, or he just gets out-controlled, he's dead in the water. He's just dead in the water, because if you don't get a Charmander to evolve into a Charmeleon, he only has actually 1 2-drop. So if you don't have something to play on 2, then you don't have something to play on 3 or 4 or whatever, because you don't have anything to evolve anymore because they kill Charmander, you're pretty screwed. There's no other way to say it. You're pretty screwed. So, if this gets sapped, you lose tempo. Sap loses tempo. It's just that simple. But then you also have to pay 3 mana for it, which is more than you should for a 3/2. Now also, Inspire on this card is actually really bad, because in order for it to actually trigger, and if it does trigger, that's a really strong Inspire effect, but Inspire, in order to trigger, you can't evolve your face. You can't evolve a Leper Gnome. You can't do that. That's not something you can do. You can only evolve Pokemon with a Ready to Evolve tag, and you can only use your hero power if it says Ready to Evolve. So, if you evolve Charmander into Charmeleon, nothing happens with the Inspire effect. If you evolve Charmeleon into Charizard, nothing happens with the Inspire effect, because you evolve it, the hero power goes off, and then Inspire, then it checks for Inspires, but Charmeleon already evolved. So, you can't use Charmeleon's Inspire unless you have another Pokemon to evolve, which is unlikely. And that's why, if you do get it to work, it gives you a huge tempo swing, but it's unlikely to get to work, which is why it's hard to pull off. So, next we've got the ever-elusive Charizard, who's a 4-mana 3/4. Again, 4 mana only matters, and I'm going to try to push it into my brain to forget to talk about that, because it doesn't matter, but I'm probably going to keep bringing it up. The mana cost only matters if it gets freezing trapped or sapped. 3/4, who can Mega Evolve, as you see, using the Mega Evolve spell, or the Mega Ring, as I showed earlier. So when this minion Mega Evolves, you actually get to pick from Charizard X or Charizard Y. And that's all his card text, because that's a really strong effect, as you'll see. Mega Charizard X, I'll talk about first, is a 6/9. Now, you may think, oh, well, I mean, that's not that great. I mean, he costs 3 mana, you have to evolve it a bunch, but think about it. In the optimal situation, you play Charmander with 1 mana. Then when you have 2 mana, you evolve it into Charmeleon. Then when you have 3 mana, you evolve it into Charizard. You don't even do anything else, you just evolve into Charizard. A 3/4 is great. Then, when you have 4 mana, you play your 3 mana Mega Evolve spell, bam, a 6/9 on turn 4. That's absurd. That's ridiculous. That's absurd! But if it gets sapped, or freezing trapped, you're sad because it's 6 mana, you can't play it anymore. You have to wait until it's actually sort of reasonable mana cost to play it again. And if it gets, you know, polymorphed or hexed, you're out of it. You just lost a huge amount of mana, because you didn't invest like 4 mana to it. You invested, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you invested like 2 cards and like 8 mana into getting it in order to get it earlier than you normally should be able to. But anyway, now we're actually going to talk about what it does. Mega Charizard X, when this minion takes damage, and it should say whenever, I realize actually, as with False Swipe, it should say whenever. This minion takes damage, add a claw to your hand, a claw from Druid. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where it doesn't have, Pokemon Trainer only has one way to draw cards, but it does have some ways to add some, cards into its hand. Recurring card draw that is not general card draw, it's specific cards. So this is a strong minion, obviously a 6/9 on turn 4 is ridiculous, especially when that gives you little minute value. And this is based on Charizard, Mega Charizard X Tough Claw abilities, where he has to make contact with something. So you have to make contact with something, and then you get claws, which is, Tough Claws. That's the idea aesthetically. So let's move to Charizard Y. Mega Charizard Y is really cool aesthetically, as well as just in general. He says, spell damage +2. At the end of your turn, add a flame cannon to your hand, and he is at 4/8. So Mega Charizard Y in the game starts up the sun. The sun makes fire-based spells deal 50% more damage. Flame cannon deals 4 damage. 50% of 4 is 2. Bam! Flavor text. That's not flavor text, that's flavor in general. Don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just really excited. I'm really proud of that one. I thought I did a really good job. Mega Charizard Y is really cool. Let's move on to the next Pokemon, Mudkip. Mudkip is a 1-mana 2/2, which is really good, right? 2/2 is above average. Battlecry, freeze your hero and adjacent minions. That's not as good, especially for a deck which I've self-described as a tempo-based deck. Tempo-based set of cards, you can't even, it's one of the only ways to play it is tempo. If you're going to be playing a lot of minions and a lot of Pokemon, it's the only way to play it is tempo. So freeze your hero. That's not that bad. I mean, you don't have any weapons, so I don't really, unless you're playing a Blingtron combo deck, in which case, why would you play Mudkip? If you're going to play Blingtron combo, you're not going to care about some silly Mudkip ruining your Blingtron combo. Your adjacent minions, though, that could be a problem, because you might freeze something that needs to attack to trade, or you might stop something from attacking next turn. However, it also might not be a big deal, because you might be able to evolve the thing you've frozen, and then it transforms and it isn't frozen anymore. However, that might sound great, like, oh, well, it actually isn't a downside anymore, it's just a 1-mana 2/2, that's great, but it's not really that great, because it dies to the strong 1-drops that we already know, like 2/1s that trade up really well. It already dies to those still. And it trades evenly with 1/3s, which are the other common 1-drop stat line. It trades really well, and the best situation is you play it against like a mage who would love to ping this but can't, but then it ends up still being able to kill a knife juggler. That's a really good situation. But you don't want to trade it, you want to evolve it. So it's not actually a good situation. And another good situation, well, another bad situation actually, is if the enemy plays a 2/3, you can't stop it from just killing Mudkip. So Mudkip's 2/2 is very niche useful, and its downside isn't actually that bad, so it's pretty simple actually. But when it evolves, it becomes Marshtomp, who is a 2/3 with Inspire, deal 3 damage to a random enemy, similar to Charmeleon in the fact that the Inspire probably won't actually happen, but is also ready to evolve into Swampert, who can Mega Evolve. And is a 3/4, and actually has an Inspire of his own. Deal 2 damage to all minions, so basically you inspire Swampert to just Earthquake the crap out of everyone. And that's pretty good. However, again, it's hard to get off, but since he has more health, it's more likely that he'll be able to Earthquake the crap out of everyone, to say it candidly. And when he Mega Evolves, you get Mega Swampert, who is a 4/6 with Mega Wind Fury. Very simple, but getting a 4/6 on turn 4, just in general, is above curve. Getting one with Mega Wind Fury is ridiculous. Just imagine this. You play this, you get it to evolve, they can't kill it, then you play a Life Orb on it, that's game over, right? Even though the Life Orb will hurt it 4 times, it has enough health to live that, and then the enemy loses. So this can be a win condition if it's played correctly. I mean, even if you don't play it on turn 1, it can still be considered a win condition if you can get it out and protect it somehow. So, pretty cool stuff. Now next, we're going to talk about Ditto. A bit of a change of pace from all this evolution stuff. I'm gonna talk about Ditto, 3-mana 2/2. Battlecry, become an exact copy of a random enemy minion, so just a random one. Unlike Faceless Manipulator, where you get to pick any minion, and that's actually an important distinction, this is a random enemy. You can't clone your own stuff, and that's actually a big strength of the Faceless, because you can combo something you normally would only be able to play one of, or you can play something for cheaper than it normally is. So this is only enemies, but it costs a lot less for that reason. However, it's also random. So you might have a bunch of 1/1s on the board, and a Ragnaros, you want the Ragnaros, and you end up getting a 1/1. That's a bad situation. However, if there's just Ragnaros, you get to play this for 3 mana, you can Big Game Hunter it for 3, or Thunderbolt it, or something like that, or Earthquake, whatever the heck you got in your hand to deal with it. And then you got your 3-mana Ragnaros, and that's awesome. So Ditto's pretty cool. and pretty useful, yeah. Next we got Voltorb. Voltorb's pretty nice. He's a 3-mana 4/2. It says at the end of your turn, deal 1 damage to all characters. That includes Voltorb, and both heroes, and all minions. So it deals AoE damage and explodes thematically with Voltorb, and destroys everything. And it explodes twice, unless you heal it. And for example, if you give this leftovers, pretty strong combo wombo right there, sonny. It also has pretty high attack, and also can just wipe small minions from the board. Now if you evolve it, you get Electrode, who is a 4/5. At the end of your turn, deal 3 damage to all characters. So it's just a bigger Voltorb. Instead of being a 4/1 at the end of its first explosion, it's a 4/2. It also deals 3 damage to everything instead of just 1. So it's really big, boom, like burst explosion damage, so pretty powerful. And next we're actually going to talk about a pick that I don't think most people would expect me, like a person to create if they were like, what Pokemon cards are you going to make? I made Audino. It's a 5-mana 3/6, Death Rattle, restore all friendly minions to full health, and can Mega Evolve. So this card alone as a 5-mana 3/6 is actually really good. 5-mana 3/6 is a stat line only seen on the Fen Creeper, and its effect is not very strong, but a 3/6 with a really strong effect like this, restore all friendly minions to full health, is actually, I mean, it's not amazing, don't get me wrong, but it's not terrible. It's still okay, and can still possibly restore a bunch of minions a ton of health. However, if it Mega Evolves, it becomes a 4/12 with Taunt, which is already great, right? Because once you get into the higher mana costs here, you can look at a Pokemon like Audino, which just has itself, and then it Mega Evolves. You can look at it as you play Audino for 5, you get a 3/6. Or you can get a 8 mana, where you play the Audino plus the Mega Evolve spell, and you get an 8 mana card, which is a Taunt 4/12. At the end of your turn, restore all friendly minions to full health. So you can look at it as an 8 mana Mega Audino, or a 5 mana Audino, with the potential, if it lives, for you to Mega Evolve it right after on turn 6, and get a 6 mana, a turn 6, 4/12 with Taunt. So either one is really strong. Obviously it's better if you get it on turn 6. It is weak to Black Knight. A huge taunt like this, if it was running rampant, would probably incite some Black Knights to come out. However, this card, actually, I put it right after Voltorb and Electrode, because if you play this with Voltorb and Electrode, you can heal them up right after they explode. And that's actually really strong, because then they can keep on exploding everything. And it would this Audino would heal everything, meaning you can keep on clearing their board repetitively if they just play small guys, have a huge taunt in the way, and heal everything on your side of the board. And that's really insane combo that could theoretically be a deck. And next we're going to talk about Riolu. Riolu is a 3/4 for 3 that says immune to freeze. So it's a very simple effect that's basically useless. It's basically useless. But, you know, Mech is also on Spider Tank, and that's probably better, honestly. However, Riolu can evolve, and if Riolu does evolve, you get Lucario. And Lucario is a 3/7 that says whenever this minion takes damage, gain +2 attack. Now this seems like a Gurubashi Berserker, and it essentially is. It's a Gurubashi Berserker with 1 more attack, and it gains less attack every time it takes damage. Especially if you play Riolu and Hero Power on turn 5, then you are getting basically your Gurubashi. However, here's where I was talking about Life Orb's downside not being a downside, and that's when things get crazy. You play Life Orb on this, it becomes a 7/7. Every time it deals damage, it gets 2 more attack. That's when things get crazy. And you can play Gurubashi Berserker too, and just do the same exact thing. Play Life Orb on it, hit something, bam, gets 3+ attack. That's really crazy. Or it gets 6 if a Gurubashi Berserker hits something and has Life Orb on it. Lucario gets 4 if it hits something with Life Orb on it, so it's really strong. And it can Mega Evolve in a Mega Lucario, which is a 3/9 with Godzrilla's card text. Whenever this minion takes damage, double its attack. That's crazy. That's really good. Imagine Life Orb on this. Imagine Life Orb on this. You play Life Orb on this, it becomes a 7/9 double every time it takes damage. It doesn't even have to hit something to take the damage. It can hit the face, deal 7 damage, and then become a 14/8. Or it can hit something and take damage twice, becoming 28/7 at the best. That's absurd. If you have a Mega Audino, it hits a thing and then gets fully healed, so it becomes a 28/9. That's absurd. That's ridiculously strong. That's insane. It's really good. And you might be able to get it on turn 5. Turn 5 for a 3/9, I'd say that's solid, yeah. I'd say that's a huge tempo swing. Again, Pokemon Trainer's a tempo junkie. So here, we've got another card. This is a really cool card, it's Remoraid. You may think, why would you make Remoraid into a card if you're gonna make... Why didn't you pick like a cool Pokemon? Why didn't you pick a cool Pokemon like Klefki? Why'd you make Remoraid? Klefki's my favorite, why didn't you make Klefki? Well, I made Remoraid, because Remoraid... I like Remoraid. He's a cool guy, he looks like a derpy fish dude. And he's cool. So he's a 2 mana 1/4. It says Battlecry deal 2 damage. Now that's really strong, first of all. 2 mana 1/4 Battlecry deal 2 damage would be one of the strongest cards ever added to the game if it was actually added. It does have a downside, but if it didn't, even with this downside, it's a ridiculously powerful card. As it says, your hero power costs 2 more. So basically it says don't use your hero power anymore for a turn, at least. but you deal 2 damage and have a 1/4. That's crazy. Imagine your opponent plays Flame Imp, coin Flame Imp. You play Remoraid. Remoraid goes 2 for 1 against 3/2s. He kills a 3/2, then the 1/4 can kill the other 3/2. That's really strong. It's just absurd. All it does is lock out your hero power for turn 3. And then on turn 4, you can play it again and evolve Remoraid to get rid of that ability and get Octillery. Octillery is a 4 mana, 2/6. 4 mana is actually representative of how much it cost this time. Kind of interesting. When this minion takes damage, deal 3 damage randomly split amongst enemy minions. Simple card text similar to Flamewaker, but it's a little bit harder to trigger until the Life Orb combo comes again. If you play a Life Orb on this, it's a 6/6. Every time it hits something, it deals 3 damage randomly. That's crazy! If it hits something like a minion, it gets hurt twice, it deals 6 damage randomly split. Crazy stuff can happen with Life Orb. And if you play Leftovers on it, then it gets healed at the start of the turn, or if you have an Audino or Mega-Audino, you can sacrifice Audino or have Mega-Audino healing it. Crazy powerful if it gets a Life Orb on it, basically. If it gets a Life Orb on it, it's ridiculous. It's really strong for that reason. Next, we're talking the reason Remoraid is actually in the set is Mantike. Remoraid and Mantike in Pokemon have an interesting relationship where Mantike cannot evolve unless you have a Remoraid around in your party. So, in order for Mantike to evolve, you need a Remoraid. So, Battlecry, if you have a Remoraid, evolve! Right away, you evolve. And it's 3 mana, 2/4. However, it says your hero power costs 5 more. That's ridiculous. That means you can't use your hero power until turn 7 to evolve this normally. And if you actually don't get this effect to trigger with the Battlecry, then you're stuck until turn 7 to evolve more things. And that's really awful. That's really atrociously awful. So, if you don't get the combo of Remoraid Mantike, like 2-3, both of the cards are kind of bad, because Remoraid is really strong on its own, but you still obviously want to get the Mantike combo, because if you get the Mantike combo, then it was all worth it. The downside becomes not a downside anymore, because you got this huge upside of the Mantine evolving. And if you have both of these somehow, oh, your hero power costs 7 more. That means you have to wait till turn 9 to evolve these things to get rid of their downsides. However, Mantine is huge. Mantine is a 7/4. At the end of your turn, put a Frostbolt into your hand. That is insane. That's ridiculous. However, the most ridiculous part about this card is actually the Frostbolt, because 4 health is actually a somewhat normal 3 mana card, health total. So the 4 health could probably be dealt with by many opponents, with something like a Frostbolt Ping, things like that. So the craziest thing about this card is actually the Frostbolt. On turn 3, you get a Frostbolt, and your opponent has to sink possibly their own Frostbolt, or their entire turn into killing it, because it's 7/4. Maybe they get to play a good BGH on it, and then Remoraid gets killed by it too, and then they just have a 4/1 BGH that you have to deal with. And the Pokemon Trainer has a tough time dealing 1 damage, so Mantine isn't too crazy. But if you get on 3 mana, again, huge tempo swing. And the Pokemon Trainer, as I said, is a tempo junkie. So, that's a great card, really cool. Next card is Sneasel. Sneasel, 3 mana, 3/3, Battlecry, freeze, and deal 1 damage to an enemy. That's really good, right? That's really good. That's really good. Like, if you think about the Ironforge Rifleman, 3 mana, 2/2, deal 1 damage, if I'm not mistaken. This card is obviously amazingly power creeped on that guy, like ridiculously, but it's a class card, so we let it slide. And Sneasel's cool, it deserves it. Also, that card's trash, so we power creep those. Freeze and deal 1 damage to an enemy, though, is really strong, because normally 3/3s are just okay, but if you can freeze and deal 1 damage to something, that means you could either get rid of a minion that's on the enemy opposing your 3/3, or you could just stop it from possibly opposing your 3/3. So this gives it more chance for the Sneasel to evolve, and if it does evolve, you get Weavile, which is a 5/3 that says whenever this minion attacks, it gains immune until the end of your turn. So if you attack with Weavile, it is guaranteed to deal its damage and not die. If it gets hurt by your enemy on their turn or cast a spell at, it dies probably immediately. It's got a decent health amount, but for turn 4, a 5/3 is not very good. A 5/4 is kind of, a vanilla quote-unquote card stat line on turn 4, and even those aren't played very often, and some of them have, minor abilities, so Weavile probably wouldn't be that great. But Sneasel's pretty good, and if you do get a Weavile going and trading a lot, it can be really strong, especially against a minion, or a deck without very many non-minion removal cards, and it just has minions to try to trade, or it's an aggro deck or something. It can be really crazy. So next, we've actually got Zorua. Zorua? I don't know. Whatever. 3 mana, 2/4. This minion appears to be another random 3 mana minion to your opponent until it attacks or is targeted. Now, targeted means a minion attacks it, they cast a spell at it. It does not mean if Flame Strike happens. If Flame Strike happens, they're never going to know. If they cast Magic Missiles and it gets hit, they're never going to know. They might figure it out when your Demolisher that you summon doesn't shoot barrels, or your Big Game Hunter doesn't kill your Mantine, or other things like that. It would obviously be a dead giveaway, if they knew what was going on, if they understood that Zorua was a card, but if they didn't understand it, they wouldn't know. And you want to kill Zorua, because Zorua evolves into Zoroark, and Zoroark is a 3/5 that says when summoned, which means when it evolves basically, when summoned add an illusion to your hand, which is a spell we're going to talk about in a second. And it says Zoroark gains +1/+1 at the start of each turn if it remains an illusion. So does illusion make it turn into something else? How does that work? Illusion is a 3-mana spell. It says the minion furthest right in your hand becomes Zoroark. So whatever that minion is, if it's a Ragnaros, now it's a Zoroark. If you play this spell, you don't have to play it, you can wait. If it's a Leopardome, bam, it's a Zoroark. So Zoroark is probably better. It's a 5-mana, 3/5 that gains +1/+1 at the start of each turn and remains an illusion. So, as we can see here, your opponent sees it as the minion it was until it is attacked or targeted, like Zora was revealed. So, if it turns into a Leopardome, you play a 2/1, and if they hit it, they'll realize then that it was actually a Zoroark. Or if they're paying attention to how much mana you have, they can look and pay attention and say, okay, he just played a 5-mana Leopardome. Well, what is he doing? I think that's the Zoroark. And they can see that. They can easily see that. And see that the illusion is Zoroark. However, Zoroark played from your hand as an illusion is guaranteed to be a 4/6 because it remains an illusion at the start of your opponent's turn. Then they have to figure it out. So a 4/6, they have to at least reveal it, because if they don't reveal it and it goes back to your turn, it's a 5/7. And then you pass it back to them, because you're not going to kill it or target it. I mean, you might target it with a Life Orb maybe if you want to go super aggressive, but let's say you don't target it, then it becomes, what is it, a 6/8? Yeah, you want to get this thing revealed as soon as possible. So once they see the Zoroark come out, once they see the illusion come out and read the card and say, oh man, I got to figure out what that is, I have to watch for it. They can also say, well, it has to be one of these cards, because they can see your hand, right? They could say it has to be the one furthest to the right, so it has to be this card. It has to be in this hand of cards he has right now. It can't be something he draws later, so they can look for that and try to figure out which one it is. Zoroark's super cool. It's a cool mind games tool, similar to Secrets, but at the same time, your opponent is fully aware of what is happening, but instead of trying to figure out which secret it is, they're trying to figure out which minion is hiding its secrets, and that's a really cool idea. So next we have got a very simple card, no evolutions, no nothing, it's Tropius. 5-mana, 7/7, giant monster with bananas. It says Battlecry, give your opponent a banana. Death Rattle, give your opponent a rotten banana. That's kinda... He died and gave him a rotten banana. That's kind of messed up, don't you think? I think so. That's why the flavor text is that way. It's 5-mana, 7/7 though. Pretty simple downsides. It gives your opponent bananas. When it enters the field, gives them a +1/+1 banana. When it dies, it gives them a 1 damage banana. Now, 5-mana, 7/7 is not, too crazy. There's a 5-mana 8/8 in the game that people don't really play, and 4-mana 8/8s in the handlock sometimes don't cut it. But 5-mana, 7/7, where the downside is just 1 banana at first, and they still have to kill it to get the other downside, is actually pretty strong, and it might be pretty powerful if it doesn't get big game huntered or polymorphed or something like that. Especially because if it gets polymorphed text, that kind of thing, they don't get the rotten banana. So yeah, Tropius is actually pretty strong. It's a pretty big tempo play. It's a very simple tempo play as well, and that's a good thing. Having the Pokemon Trainer have some simple cards to play as far as their tempo swings are enabled, having them have something that's really simple. You just play it, you don't have to evolve it, you don't have to Mega Evolve it, you don't have to all these crazy combos set up, you just play it and it works, is really strong. It's really important to them actually. The next menu we're talking about, we're getting into the legendaries. Legendaries are really cool. I'm really happy with the way they turned out. And the first one is Diance. Diance is a 6-mana 5/5. Battlecry, add a Diamond Storm to your hand that can Mega Evolve. So first we're going to take a quick look at Diamond Storm. Diamond Storm is a 3-mana spell that says deal 1 damage to all enemies. So all enemy minions and the enemy hero. Mega-Diance or Diance gain +1 health for each enemy hit. So if you have 8 enemy minions on the board, you play Diamond Storm for 3 mana. It deals 1 damage to all of them, which is already a really good effect. Diance gets +8 health. Becomes a 5/13. That is absurd. However, what's Mega-Diance do? Is Mega-Diance just maybe more Diamond Storms or something? No. Mega-Diance is an 8-mana 5/7. Cannot be targeted by spells or hero powers. This is insane. Really, it is insane. If you play Diamond Storm and there's a bunch of minions on board, this minion becomes even bulkier, and it requires minions to trade into it, which is even more insane, because you can clear the board with Diamond Storm, healing Diance, and continue to use Diance to trade into minions, and the minions have to trade into it to kill it unless they silence the Diance. And Diamond Storm can even be saved, because Mega-Diance isn't easily killed off. And if you play Diance, you get the Diamond Storm, so you could instantly after that Mega Evolve it, and then still have the Diamond Storm for later. Mega-Diance and Diance are really strong. It should not be underestimated. They are simple, somewhat, but incredibly powerful. Now next up, we actually have the 2 legendaries of Johto. You've got Ho-Oh first, and we're going to talk about Lugia after. They're both 8 mana. Ho-Oh is an 8-mana 6/6 with Charge. When this minion is returned to your hand, it costs 4, only 4 mana, and gains +6 health when played. So this is harkening to its Regenerator ability, where it gains health when it gets put back into your party in Pokemon. In this case, it gains health when it gets put back into your hand. And I figured if it's going to get put back into your hand a bunch, and that's kind of the theme, is you put it back in your hand, it wants to have an ability right away, instead of just, like, get more health. So it has charge for that reason, and also costs less when it gets put back in your hand, so it can actually be reasonably played. An 8 mana 6/6 with charge is not absurd. You know, there's an 8 mana 4/9 with charge that can get +6 attack by being damaged by any 1 damage, meaning it's a huge burst damage. This, if it gets returned to your hand, becomes a 4 mana 6/12 with charge. That's really good. And, even more crazy, you play this, you attack the face, let's say, and you have an eject button from earlier. This thing gets damaged by 1, bam, back to your hand. Now it's a 4 mana 6/12. Crazy. However, even crazier is what Lugia does. Lugia synergizes with Ho-Oh. It's an 8 mana 5/8 Divine Shield, harkening to its multi-scale ability. With Battle Cry, return a minion to its owner's hand. That ability is primary to synergize with Ho-Oh, but also just because it's really windy, and wind pushes things around. So you can return a friendly minion like Ho-Oh to your hand, or you can sap an enemy minion like a Ragnaros to their hand. And having a sap with a really strong body with Divine Shield like this, Lugia is insane. However, it does have to return a minion. So if you're winning really hard, Lugia may not be good because there may not be something you want to return to your hand. You might have a bunch of minions that are really costly, especially because a lot of the Pokemon tend to cost more than they probably should. Megas tend to don't, and the later game ones don't, but the early games one, especially like, you know, Charmeleon, cost a little bit more than they're supposed to and lose you tempo when you play them again. So if you have a bunch of minions on your board and they don't have any on theirs, returning a minion to your hand can lose you tempo, meaning Lugia can actually lose you tempo, and 5/8 with Divine Shield, though, is still really strong and very, very difficult to kill. Just like in Pokemon, where it has Recover and Roost or whatever, I don't even know. It has multi-scale and just never doesn't die. It's horrific. It's horrific, really. And finally, our last card, the grandpappy of them all, it's Mewtwo. It's Mewtwo, 7 mana 7/7, cranking on Dr. Boom's style with a super strong ability, summoning his brother's Mega Mewtwo Bot X and Mega Mewtwo Bot Y, except actually it says the same thing Charizard does basically. When this minion Mega Evolves, you pick Mega Mewtwo X, or Mega Mewtwo Y, and it says Mega Evolve at the bottom because it can Mega Evolve. So, what do the 2 Mega Evolutions do when you pick them? Also, important to note, 7 mana, you can pay, if this gets played, you know, and as always, remember, you have a Mega Ring possibility. So you can lose that huge tempo, but if you play this on turn 7 and instantly change it, that's crazy. Or if you play this on turn 7 and it survives, you play the spell on turn 8, that's again crazy. If you play this on turn 10, it's still okay, but it requires 2 cards to do it. So, now that that's quickly explained, let's go to the Mega Forms. We have Mega Mewtwo Y, who is a 7/9, and this 10 mana, I haven't mentioned most of the spells, most of the mana costs of evolved things, but in this case, if this gets freezing trapped, it actually cannot be played anymore, unless Thor's Sand triggers twice, I guess. So that actually is somewhat important, and it can matter maybe, so that's a little bit more noteworthy than some of the other mana costs of evolutions. So anyway, Mega Mewtwo Y, spell damage +5, so it has Malygos's card text in addition to some more. Whenever your spell is played, add a Psystrike to your hand. Now, we're gonna look at Psystrike. It's got 7/9 in stats. All the Mewtwo's can die to BGH. It's 7/9, that's really good. And Psystrike is an 8 mana, deal 10 damage. So it's actually the old version of Pyroblast. And earlier I said that the Pokemon Trainer doesn't really have any burst damage, except for one card in particular, and that's Mewtwo. Let me tell you, if a card's gonna deal burst damage in the Pokemon Trainer, it's gonna be goddamn Mewtwo. Mewtwo, 8 mana, deal 10 damage is huge burst damage, first of all. 8 mana, deal 15 damage if Mega Mewtwo Y survives, plus you get another Psystrike if it's surviving, because whenever a spell is played, that's 15 damage, you get another one, Mega Mewtwo Y survives again, you win the game, unless they've got like 100 armor set up or something. Now, what does Mega Mewtwo X do? Mega Mewtwo Y seems pretty good. He seems okay. I mean, he's pretty likely to get a spell, because they usually have to do something like polymorph it to get rid of it, and then they get you the Psystrike. So, what does Mega Mewtwo X do? Mega Mewtwo X is a 11/11, which is really high stats. And it says, when this minion becomes frozen, unfreeze it and gain charge. So Mega Mewtwo Y is kind of the slow burn burst. This is fast burst. And earlier I said the Mudkip downside isn't a huge downside. You know, if you evolve it or whatever, it can be not a downside. This is where, like Life Orb, its downside becomes an upside. Because if you play Mudkip with this, if you play the Mudkip Mewtwo combo, or the Mewtwo Frost Breath combo, or Frostbolt from the Mantine, whatever, a few of the freezing effects that are available in the deck, it gets unfrozen and gains charge. Now this is kind of a weird card text, obviously, to put on Mewtwo. It's based on the fact that Mewtwo's very physical, that's why he can gain charge. Mega Mewtwo X, very physical. And also the fact that he has the ability Steadfast, which makes him gain speed, charge, when he becomes flinched, and flinch and frozen are kind of similar, so that's where the idea came from. I figured I'd explain that one because it's kind of a weird, obscure effect. So, that's Mega Mewtwo X, and in fact, that's all the cards. I hope you enjoyed this video. There's a lot of cards, they were a lot of fun to talk about, I had a lot of fun designing them. They're really cool cards. I don't know if they're all balanced honestly, especially in conjunction. Some of the combos I didn't even realize until I filmed this voiceover around 8 times. I kept on realizing, like, wait a minute, that's a crazy combo. How didn't I realize I just made that? I'm clearly a game design master. I didn't even realize, like, Octillery comboing with Life Orb? Didn't even realize. Didn't cross my mind until, like, way later than it should have. So, I'm sure there's even more combos that people watching the video will figure out and make even more broken synergies than I could even imagine. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope you find some broken stuff that I didn't even realize. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time.